something. Here comes a moment in every human life when the greatest enemy is no longer the stranger across the room. It is the version of yourself that taught the world it could treat you without consequence. Listen carefully. People do not begin with disrespect. They begin with observation. Before they speak to you, they study you. Before they cross your boundaries, they measure your willingness to defend them. Before they betray you, they ask one silent question. What will happen if I do? If the answer is nothing, then disrespect becomes inevitable. The tragedy is that many people spend years trying to be loved when they should first become impossible to exploit. Understand this law. Respect is rarely given because you deserve it. It is given because people recognize the cost of violating it. A river does not announce its strength. A mountain does not explain its height. Fire never argues that it can burn. Its nature speaks before words ever can. Become like that. Stop explaining yourself to people determined to misunderstand you. Stop negotiating your dignity. Stop begging for appreciation from those who benefit from your weakness. Every unnecessary explanation tells the world you need permission to exist. Every ignored insult teaches someone that your silence is surrender. Every abandoned boundary becomes an invitation. Life has no shortage of people willing to test your limits. The question is whether your life has taught them that your limits are real. Many confuse kindness with weakness, but true kindness has teeth. A lion does not become less powerful because it chooses not to attack every creature. Its restraint is respected because everyone knows it has another option. That is the kind of strength you must cultivate. Not loudness, not anger, not revenge. Power, quiet, disciplined, undeniable power. Never mistake emotional reactions for strength. The loudest person in the room often fights because they have already lost control. The strongest person rarely raises their voice. Their standards speak. Their discipline speaks. Their absence speaks louder than arguments ever could. There is a dangerous habit many people carry. They reward disrespect with more access. Someone lies to them, they stay. Someone humiliates them, they laugh it off. Someone repeatedly ignores them, they continue chasing approval. Then they wonder why the cycle never ends, because people believe what your actions teach them, not your complaints, not your intentions. Your actions, if disrespect has no consequences, disrespect becomes normal. Remember this, your time is your reputation. Your attention is your currency. Your presence is your permission. Spend these things carelessly, and people assume they have unlimited access. Protect them, and suddenly everyone becomes more careful. The world changes when you stop chasing those who enjoy being chased. There is a mysterious power in walking away, not as manipulation, not as revenge, but because peace has become more valuable than proving your worth. Nothing unsettles those who underestimated you more than discovering they no longer control your emotions. Silence is often misunderstood. Some believe silence is fear. Sometimes it is, but disciplined silence is different. Disciplined silence watches. It remembers, it learns, it refuses to waste energy convincing people of truths they have chosen to ignore. Not every battle deserves your voice, some deserve your departure. You cannot command respect while constantly asking to be accepted. The desperate seek invitations, the respected create standards. File your standards high enough, and many people will remove themselves from your life. Do not mourn every departure. Some exits are divine protection disguised as rejection. A tree does not beg dead leaves to remain. It lets them fall because new growth demands space. You must become comfortable with disappointing people, not through cruelty, through conviction. There will always be those who become angry the moment your boundaries inconvenience them. Do not confuse their frustration with your failure. Their discomfort often reveals how much they benefited from your lack of limits. You were not born to become everyone's convenience. You were born to become the guardian of your own soul. Real power is not making people afraid of your anger. Real power is making them understand they cannot violate your principles without losing the privilege of knowing you. That fear is different. It is not terror. It is consequence. People respect locked doors more than open gates, not because locked doors are cruel. Because they communicate value. Your life must become like that. Not available to everyone, not explained to everyone. Respect is often misunderstood as something that can be requested, negotiated, or earned through endless acts of kindness. Many people spend spend years believing that if they become more accommodating, more patient, more forgiving, and more available, others will naturally value them. Yet experience repeatedly proves the opposite. The more a person abandons their own standards to satisfy everyone around them, the easier it becomes for others to overlook their worth. Respect does not begin with the opinions of strangers. It begins with the invisible lines you draw around your dignity and your willingness to defend those lines. Every relationship, whether personal or professional, quietly revolves around the boundaries people establish. Long before anyone decides how they will treat you, they are observing what you tolerate, what you excuse, and what you repeatedly allow without consequence. Human nature constantly searches for limits, not always out of cruelty, but out of instinct. Every interaction becomes an unspoken test. Some people test your patience, others test your honesty, many test your courage to say no. These moments rarely arrive with dramatic announcements. They appear in small requests, careless jokes, broken promises, interrupted conversations, and subtle dismissals. They seem insignificant when viewed one at a time, yet together they form a pattern that teaches people exactly how much access they have to your peace. If every violation is ignored, the next violation becomes easier. If every insult is laughed away to avoid conflict, disrespect slowly transforms from an exception into an expectation. The world learns your standards from your responses, not from your speeches. Many confuse boundaries with walls. They imagine that protecting themselves means becoming cold, distant, or suspicious of everyone. But healthy boundaries are not prisons. They are gateways. They allow honesty to enter while keeping manipulation outside. They welcome respect while refusing exploitation. A person with strong boundaries is not difficult to love. They are simply impossible to control. There is an enormous difference between refusing abuse and refusing connection. One isolates the heart out of fear. The other protects the heart out of wisdom. Strength has never required bitterness. It only requires clarity about what will and will not be accepted. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing that love demands unlimited sacrifice. They convince themselves that saying yes to everything is proof of loyalty, that enduring constant disrespect demonstrates maturity, or that remaining silent in the face of repeated offenses keeps relationships alive. Yet relationships sustained by one person's endless surrender are not healthy relationships. They are arrangements built on imbalance. Every time you abandon your principles to preserve someone's comfort, you quietly teach them that your values are negotiable. Over time, this silent lesson becomes the foundation upon which they continue demanding more while offering less. What begins as generosity eventually becomes expectation, and what was once appreciated slowly becomes taken for granted. There's a quiet confidence that emerges when a person finally decides that their self-respect is no longer available for negotiation. It does not announce itself with anger or dramatic confrontation. It reveals itself in consistency. The ability to decline what violates your values without guilt carries extraordinary power. Saying no without lengthy explanations communicates something that endless arguments never can. It tells the world that your decisions are rooted in principle rather than approval. People quickly recognize the difference between someone who sets boundaries out of confidence and someone who only creates temporary limits until they are pressured into changing them. Many people fear disappointing others because they mistake temporary discomfort for permanent rejection. They worry that enforcing a boundary will drive people away, create conflict, or expose them to criticism. Yet this fear often keeps them trapped in cycles of resentment. They continue saying yes while secretly hoping others will notice their sacrifice. They remain available even when exhausted, expecting appreciation to eventually appear. Instead, exhaustion deepens, resentment grows, and respect quietly disappears. Boundaries may disappoint those who benefited from your lack of them, but disappointment is not destruction. Often it simply reveals who valued your presence and who merely valued your compliance. Notice how people naturally protect what they consider valuable. Precious objects are stored carefully. Sacred places are treated with reverence. Rare opportunities are approached thoughtfully because access is limited. Human beings instinctively recognize value where limits exist. Unlimited availability, however, often creates unconscious carelessness. When your time, energy, attention, and forgiveness are endlessly accessible, regardless of how others behave, they begin to feel ordinary rather than precious. This is why boundaries increase value. They remind people that your presence is not an entitlement, but a privilege maintained through mutual respect. something. The strongest boundaries are established long before conflict appears. They exist within your own convictions before they are ever expressed to another person. When your principles depend entirely upon someone else's behavior, they become unstable. Something. True boundaries originate from self-discipline. They reflect an internal decision about the kind of life you refuse to compromise. Because of this, they remain steady whether others approve or criticize. Something. External pressure loses much of its influence when your identity is no longer built upon pleasing everyone around you. The opinions of others may still matter, but they no longer govern the direction of your choices. Something. Every meaningful transformation begins with one quiet decision: to stop treating your own dignity as something that can be exchanged for acceptance. From that moment forward, every choice becomes a declaration of your standards. Something. Every calm refusal strengthens your confidence. Every protected boundary reinforces your identity. Every act of self-respect teaches others that your values are not temporary preferences but permanent principles worthy of recognition. Something. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of strength. Many people believe that remaining quiet automatically makes them appear wise, disciplined, or emotionally mature. They assume that saying nothing in the face of disrespect is evidence of self-control. But silence by itself has no power. It becomes powerful only when it is supported by action. Without action, silence is often interpreted as hesitation, fear, uncertainty, or permission. The difference between commanding respect and inviting disrespect is rarely found in the words you speak. It is found in whether your actions give weight to those words or to your silence. Human beings pay far more attention to patterns of behavior than to carefully chosen phrases. They observe what you tolerate repeatedly, and from those observations, they decide how seriously they should take your boundaries. There are moments when speaking accomplishes very little. Arguments can stretch for hours without changing a single mind. Explanations can become endless, especially when offered to people who never intended to understand you in the first place. Some individuals do not seek clarity. They seek control. They ask questions not because they value your perspective, but because they hope you will continue defending yourself until you become exhausted. Every unnecessary explanation places your peace in someone else's hands. Every attempt to convince people who have already chosen their conclusions drains emotional energy that could have been invested elsewhere. Silence in those moments can become an act of wisdom, but only if it is followed by decisions that reinforce your values. Many people remain silent while allowing the very behavior they claim to reject. They avoid confrontation, ignore repeated offenses, and convince themselves that patience alone will eventually inspire change. Days become months, months become years, and nothing improves because nothing has truly changed. Their silence communicates acceptance far louder than any hidden frustration. Others cannot hear the conversations taking place inside your mind. They only witness your outward response. If disrespect continues without consequence, most people naturally conclude that the behavior is acceptable. They may never realize how deeply it affects you because your actions continue granting them unrestricted access. Real silence is not passive. It is deliberate. It is the calm refusal to waste energy where energy has already proven ineffective. It understands that not every misunderstanding deserves correction and not every insult deserves an immediate reply. Yet deliberate silence always moves toward action. Sometimes that action is creating distance. Sometimes it is withdrawing trust. Sometimes it is ending unnecessary conversations. Sometimes it is refusing future opportunities for someone who repeatedly ignored your boundaries. The silence itself is not what creates respect. The action that follows teaches others that your quietness should never be mistaken for weakness. History repeatedly reminds us that true authority rarely depends upon endless talking. Those who possess genuine confidence often choose their words carefully because they understand that every sentence carries greater weight when spoken sparingly. They are not driven by the need to win every debate or respond to every criticism. Their confidence comes from alignment between belief and behavior. When they say they value honesty, they live honestly. When they say they expect respect, they protect that expectation through consistent decisions. When they choose silence, everyone around them understands it is intentional rather than fearful because their actions have already established credibility. One of the greatest mistakes people make is believing they must always defend their reputation. The moment criticism appears, they rush to explain themselves. They attempt to correct every rumor, answer every accusation, and satisfy every misunderstanding. This endless pursuit often creates the opposite effect. The more desperately someone fights to manage every opinion, the more power they surrender to those opinions. Confidence is revealed through selective engagement. Some battles deserve your voice, others deserve your absence. Silence backed by decisive action often dismantles false assumptions more effectively than hundreds of carefully crafted arguments ever could. There is also a difference between emotional silence and disciplined silence. Emotional silence is driven by fear. It hides because it feels powerless. It remains quiet because it expects rejection or conflict. Disciplined silence, however, is rooted in self-control. It does not react impulsively because it refuses to let emotions dictate every decision. Instead of exploding in anger, it observes. Instead of arguing endlessly, it evaluates. Instead of seeking immediate revenge, it chooses responses that protect long-term peace. This form of silence cannot be manipulated because it answers to principles rather than temporary emotions. People often reveal their intentions when they fail to receive the reaction they expected. Someone may provoke you hoping for an emotional outburst. They may criticize you publicly, expecting a dramatic defense. They may insult your character simply to see how easily they can disturb your composure. When your silence is accompanied by firm action instead of emotional chaos, their strategy begins to collapse. They discover that your emotions are not available for manipulation. They realize that provoking you no longer produces the reward they anticipated. Your refusal to participate becomes more unsettling than any angry response could have been because your actions quietly communicate that their behavior no longer earns access to your time or attention. Silence also creates space for observation. Constant talking often blinds people to what is happening around them. They become so focused on expressing themselves that they fail to notice the motives, habit patterns of others. Quiet attention reveals truths that emotional reactions often conceal. It allows you to recognize repeated disrespect before it becomes deeply rooted. It helps distinguish between honest mistakes and consistent character flaws. It exposes whether apologies are accompanied by meaningful change or merely repeated after every offense. Observation transforms silence into a source of wisdom because it gathers information before making decisions. The most respected individuals are rarely those who react the fastest. They are the ones whose responses carry unmistakable consistency. Their silence is never confusing because their actions always provide clarity. People understand that crossing certain lines leads to predictable consequences, not dramatic confrontations. There is no need for endless warnings when behavior consistently reflects conviction. Over time, this consistency builds an invisible reputation. Others become careful with their words and actions not because they fear emotional retaliation, but because they know your quietness is supported by unwavering principles that cannot be negotiated or ignored. Every action in life teaches a lesson. The question is not whether people are learning from you, but what they are learning. Human beings constantly observe one another, often without realizing it. They notice what receives a response, what is ignored, what is forgiven, and what carries consequences. This silent education shapes every relationship. Respect is not sustained by good intentions alone. It survives because people understand that certain lines cannot be crossed without changing the relationship itself. Consequences are the language that gives boundaries their meaning. Without them, boundaries become little more than hopeful suggestions, easily ignored whenever they become inconvenient. Many people make the mistake of believing that repeating the same warning will eventually inspire different behavior. They explain their feelings over and over again, hoping that sincerity alone will produce change. They say, "Please don't do this again," only to hear empty apologies followed by the exact same actions days later. Eventually, they become trapped in a cycle where words lose all authority because they are never reinforced by decisions. Every repeated warning without meaningful action quietly teaches others that your limits are flexible. Instead of discouraging disrespect, it unintentionally encourages it because people begin to believe that nothing significant will happen no matter how often they cross the line. Consequences are not acts of revenge. They are acts of clarity. Revenge seeks to create suffering. Consequences simply allow reality to unfold. If someone repeatedly violates your trust, the natural consequence may be reduced access to your life. If someone constantly ignores your time, the consequence may be that your availability becomes limited. If someone refuses to value your honesty, the consequence may be that they no longer receive your vulnerability. None of these decisions require anger. None require dramatic speeches. They simply reflect the understanding that relationships cannot remain unchanged when respect disappears. Nature itself operates through consequences. Every choice produces a result. Fire burns anyone who ignores its nature. Gravity affects everyone equally. something, regardless of intention. The seasons never pause because someone wishes they would. There is consistency in the way the world functions, and that consistency creates order. Human relationships are no different. When actions produce no consequences, confusion replaces order. People lose the ability to distinguish between acceptable behavior and unacceptable behavior because every action receives the same response. Over time, this uncertainty erodes respect, not because people are incapable of understanding boundaries, but because those boundaries never become tangible. Many individuals fear consequences because they mistake them for cruelty. They worry that distancing themselves from someone who repeatedly disrespects them makes them unforgiving. They believe protecting their peace means abandoning compassion. Yet compassion without wisdom often becomes permission for repeated harm. There is a difference between offering someone another chance and offering them unlimited opportunities to disregard your dignity. Grace has value because it is intentional, not because it is endless. Forgiveness can heal relationships, but forgiveness without accountability often creates environments where harmful behavior continues without interruption. People naturally adjust their behavior according to the patterns they experience. In every area of life, actions are shaped by expected outcomes. Employees meet deadlines because deadlines carry consequences. Athletes maintain discipline because performance determines opportunity. Students study because effort influences results. This principle extends into personal relationships as well. When respect strengthens trust and disrespect weakens it, people understand that their behavior matters. When every action receives identical treatment regardless of its impact, motivation for change quietly disappears. The absence of consequences communicates that choices carry no lasting significance. One reason many struggle to enforce consequences is their desire to avoid discomfort. Difficult conversations create anxiety. Walking away from unhealthy relationships feels painful. Reducing access to someone you once cared about can seem heartbreaking, yet temporary discomfort often prevents permanent damage. Choosing peace may require disappointing people who benefited from your silence. Choosing self-respect may require accepting misunderstandings from those who preferred unlimited access. Every meaningful consequence asks for courage because it demands that you value long-term dignity over short-term emotional comfort. Consequences also reveal character. When healthy boundaries are enforced, respectful people usually respond with reflection. They may ask questions, acknowledge mistakes, and work toward meaningful change. Those driven by entitlement often respond differently. They become defensive, manipulative, or angry because they expected unrestricted access regardless of their behavior. The consequence itself does not create these reactions. It simply exposes what was already present beneath the surface. Boundaries often function like light entering a dark room. They reveal realities that existed all along but remained hidden while everything was tolerated. There is remarkable strength in consistency. Many people establish consequences during moments of frustration, only to abandon them once emotions settle. They decide to distance themselves but quickly return without any meaningful change taking place. They promise themselves they will no longer tolerate disrespect, then immediately make exceptions when faced with guilt or loneliness. This inconsistency weakens credibility because it teaches others that patience will eventually outlast your convictions. Consistent action, however, creates certainty. People come to understand that your standards do not depend upon your mood. They recognize that your principles remain steady whether enforcing them feels easy or difficult. One of the quietest forms of power is allowing someone to experience the results of their own decisions without interfering. Many people exhaust themselves trying to rescue others from every consequence. They repeatedly absorb responsibilities that belong to someone else. They solve problems that another person created through repeated carelessness. While this may appear generous, it often delays growth because it removes the opportunity for accountability. People rarely change when someone else continually shields them from the outcomes of their own behavior. Growth often begins where excuses end and responsibility becomes unavoidable. Respect flourishes where accountability exists. It deepens when people understand that trust is earned through consistent actions rather than empty promises. Every consequence quietly reinforces the message that your values are real, your boundaries are meaningful, and your dignity is not available for negotiation. Others learn that access to your life is connected to how they choose to treat you, not because you demand obedience, but because every healthy relationship depends upon mutual honor, personal responsibility, and the understanding that every choice carries a lasting result. One of the deepest desires hidden within the human heart is the longing to be accepted. From childhood, people learn to seek approval through praise, recognition, and belonging. They discover that certain behaviors earn applause while others invite criticism. And over time, many begin shaping their identity around the expectations of those watching them. Without realizing it, they surrender the authority over their own lives to the changing opinions of others. Their confidence rises when they are admired and collapses when they are ignored. Their peace depends upon compliments. Their decisions depend upon validation, and their sense of worth becomes chained to people who may never truly understand them. The pursuit of approval is a quiet prison because it rarely announces itself as weakness. It often disguises itself as kindness, humility, generosity, or cooperation. A person constantly agrees to requests they do not want to fulfill because they fear disappointing someone. They silence their own convictions to avoid rejection. They apologize for taking up space, for expressing honest opinions, or for protecting their own time. Outwardly, they appear agreeable and accommodating. Inwardly, they become exhausted by the endless pressure of maintaining an image that pleases everyone except themselves. Every decision becomes less about truth and more about acceptance, less about purpose and more about popularity. Approval is unpredictable because it depends on people whose standards constantly change. The same crowd that applauds you today may criticize you tomorrow for making the exact same choice under different circumstances. Public opinion shifts with emotion, trends, and personal interests. Those who build their identity upon such unstable foundations inevitably experience instability within themselves. They spend their lives chasing a destination that moves every time they believe they have reached it. There is no lasting peace in seeking universal acceptance because universal acceptance has never existed. Every meaningful individual throughout history has faced misunderstanding, criticism, and rejection precisely because they refuse to abandon their convictions for temporary applause. Self-respect begins the moment you recognize that your value cannot be measured by the volume of approval surrounding you. It is an internal agreement that your principles matter even when they are unpopular. It allows you to remain honest when dishonesty would earn easier rewards. It gives you the courage to remain silent when speaking merely to impress others would gain attention. Self-respect is not arrogance because it does not require believing you are better than anyone else. It simply refuses to believe that your worth depends upon someone else's permission. This quiet certainty transforms the way you move through life because decisions become rooted in conviction rather than insecurity. Many people fear rejection because they mistake it for proof of inadequacy. They believe that being disliked automatically means they have failed. Yet rejection often reveals nothing about your value and everything about incompatibility, differing priorities, or conflicting expectations. Not everyone is meant to understand your path, support your choices, or appreciate your character. Trying to satisfy every individual eventually forces you to become a different person for every audience. The result is a fragmented identity that no longer knows what it genuinely believes because it has spent too much time becoming whatever others wanted it to be. There is enormous freedom in accepting that disappointment is unavoidable. Every important decision you make will likely inconvenience someone. Setting boundaries disappoints those who expected unlimited access. Choosing integrity disappoints those who benefited from dishonesty. Pursuing purpose disappoints those who preferred your comfort over your growth. If avoiding disappointment becomes your highest priority, you will spend your life sacrificing your future to preserve other people's expectations. Growth requires the willingness to endure temporary misunderstanding without abandoning lasting principles. People who possess genuine self-respect are not controlled by praise any more than they are destroyed by criticism. They understand that compliments can become as dangerous as insults when identity depends upon them. Constant praise creates dependence just as constant criticism creates insecurity. Both allow external voices to determine internal stability. True confidence emerges when neither admiration nor rejection possesses the authority to redefine who you are. Appreciation is welcome, but it is never required for peace. Criticism is considered, but it is never automatically accepted as truth. Identity remains anchored to values rather than fluctuating opinions. One of the clearest signs that someone seeks approval is the habit of over-explaining every decision. They feel obligated to justify their boundaries, defend their priorities, and convince everyone that their choices are reasonable. They fear being misunderstood so deeply that they continue explaining long after the other person has stopped listening. Yet explanations rarely change people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Endless justification motivation often communicates uncertainty rather than confidence. A person secure in their convictions understands that not every decision requires unanimous agreement. Some choices are made because they align with deeply held values, even when others refuse to approve. Building self-respect requires daily discipline rather than occasional inspiration. It grows every time you keep promises made to yourself. It strengthens each time you refuse opportunities that violate your principles. It expands whenever you choose honesty over convenience, patience over impulse, and purpose over popularity. These decisions may appear insignificant in isolation, yet together they shape the character you become. Confidence is not created through motivational words alone. It is earned by repeatedly proving to yourself that your actions remain consistent with your beliefs. Every act of integrity becomes evidence that your identity is built upon something stronger than external validation. There will always be voices eager to define your limits, question your worth, or redirect your path toward their own expectations. Some will praise you only while you remain useful to them. Others will withdraw affection the moment your boundaries interfere with their desires. If approval remains your highest pursuit, these voices will constantly determine the direction of your life. But when self-respect becomes the foundation beneath every decision, approval loses its power to control you. You begin choosing relationships based on mutual honor rather than emotional dependency, opportunities based on purpose rather than recognition, and actions based on conviction rather than applause. Your presence becomes steadier, your words become more deliberate, and your peace becomes increasingly independent from the changing opinions of those around you.